The fluorescent lights of Atlanta General Hospital buzzed quietly overhead as Jasmine Carter walked through the emergency room doors for another night shift. At 32 years old, she had been working as an ER nurse for the past 7 years, and every day brought something new. Her dark curls were neatly tied back in a bun, and her purple scrubs were freshly pressed. Small details that helped her feel ready for whatever the night might bring. "Hey Jasmine, we got a new patient in room 4, Sarah, the charge nurse, called out as she passed by. Pressure sore complications. He's a regular with Dr. Matthews." Jasmine nodded and grabbed the patient's chart. As she read through it, her eyes lingered on the details. Marcus Thompson, 34, paraplegic due to a car accident 5 years ago. She had seen many patients with similar injuries before, but something about the notes caught her attention. Under patient demeanor, someone had written, "Exceptionally positive attitude, jokes with staff." When she walked into room 4, she found Marcus sitting up in his bed, typing away on his laptop. His wheelchair was parked neatly beside him. He looked up as she entered, and his warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled. "You must be my nurse for the evening," he said, closing his laptop. "I promise I'm usually more fun to be around, but these sores are giving me trouble." Jasmine couldn't help but smile back. "I'm Jasmine, and yes, I'll be taking care of you tonight. Mind if I take a look at those sores?" As she examined the pressure sores on his lower back, they talked. She learned that Marcus worked as a web developer for a major tech company, designing websites that were accessible for people with disabilities. Despite the pain he must have been in, he kept making little jokes that made her laugh. "You know," he said while she was changing his dressing, "I used to be terrible at computers before my accident. I guess you could say I was forced to become a tech whiz. Life has a funny way of pushing you in new directions." Something about his outlook touched her. In all her years of nursing, she had seen many patients struggle with their circumstances, and rightfully so. But Marcus spoke about his challenges with such openness and grace that it was impossible not to be impressed. Throughout her shift, Jasmine found herself checking on Marcus more often than strictly necessary. She told herself it was because pressure sores could be serious, but she knew there was more to it. Every time she entered his room, he was either working on his laptop or chatting with other staff members, always with that same genuine smile. "You've got quite the fan club going," she remarked during one check-in, noticing how even the usually grumpy night janitor had stopped to chat with him. Marcus grinned. "Well, when you spend as much time in hospitals as I do, you learn to make the best of it. Plus, everyone here works so hard, they deserve a little entertainment during their shift." As morning approached and Jasmine's shift was ending, she helped Marcus prepare for his transfer to a regular room for observation. While gathering his things, he dropped his phone, and they both reached for it at the same time. Their hands touched briefly, and Jasmine felt an unexpected flutter in her stomach. "Thanks," Marcus said softly, looking at her with those kind eyes. "You know, you've made this emergency room visit almost enjoyable." Jasmine felt her cheeks warm slightly. "Just doing my job," she replied professionally, though she knew this patient had affected her differently than others. As she watched the orderlies wheel Marcus away to his new room, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed. She was right. This was just the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. Later that night, as she drove home in the early morning light, Jasmine found herself thinking about Marcus's smile and his positive attitude. In her line of work, she had learned to keep professional boundaries, but something about this patient had slipped past her usual defenses. Little did she know that this unexpected meeting in room 4 would be the first chapter of an extraordinary love story that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, love, and the power of the human spirit. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Jasmine saw Marcus again during his follow-up appointment. She was checking supplies in a storage room when she heard the familiar sound of wheelchair wheels in the hallway. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw him talking to Dr. Matthews near the nurse's station. "Jasmine," Marcus called out, his face lighting up. "I was hoping I'd run into you today." She walked over, trying to keep her smile professional. "How are those pressure sores healing?" "Much better, thanks to your excellent care," he replied. "Actually, I brought something for the ER staff." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a box of fresh cookies from the famous bakery downtown. "Just a small thank you for everyone." Word spread quickly about the cookies, and soon the nursing staff gathered around. Jasmine noticed how easily Marcus chatted with everyone, making them laugh with his stories. She also couldn't help but notice how he kept glancing her way. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus wheeled closer to her desk. "I have a question," he said, looking slightly nervous for the first time. "I know there are rules about doctors dating patients, but what about nurses and former patients?" Jasmine felt her face grow warm. I'm not sure," she answered honestly. "I've never had to think about it before." "Well, would you like to get coffee sometime and figure it out?" His confidence was back, along with that charming smile. Before Jasmine could answer, her mother called. "Hey, Mom, can I call you back?" she said quickly. "Is that the man you've been talking about?" Her mother asked loudly enough that Marcus could hear. "The one in the wheelchair? Jasmine, think about your future. What about having children? Who will take care of who?" Jasmine's face burned with embarrassment as she quickly ended the call, but when she looked at Marcus, he was still smiling, though his eyes showed he had heard everything. "Mothers worry," he said gently. "It's what they do. Mine worried too when I first started dating after my accident. But maybe over coffee, I can tell you about all the ways I've learned to be independent." Something about his understanding response, instead of getting angry or hurt, made Jasmine's heart melt a little. "I'd like that," she found herself saying. They met at a small cafe the next day. Jasmine watched as Marcus expertly maneuvered his wheelchair through the space, pulled out her chair with a practiced move, and even insisted on getting their drinks from the counter himself. "People often think I need help with everything," he explained, placing her latte in front of her. "But I've spent 5 years figuring out how to do things my way. Different doesn't mean dependent." Over the next hour, Marcus told her about his life. He had been a runner before his accident, and while he couldn't run anymore, he had found new passions. He played wheelchair basketball, went active skiing, and even taught coding classes to other people with disabilities. "The hardest part isn't the wheelchair," he said. "It's dealing with people's assumptions. They see the chair first and me second." Jasmine thought about her mother's words. "My family might take some time to understand," she admitted. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm willing to be patient. I'm pretty good at breaking down barriers, both physical and mental ones." By the end of their coffee date, Jasmine knew she was in trouble. She wasn't just attracted to Marcus, she was inspired by him. His strength wasn't just in how he handled his disability, but in how he faced life's challenges with grace and humor. As they said goodbye outside the cafe, Marcus looked up at her with those warm eyes. "I had a great time. Would you like to do this again?" Jasmine smiled, no longer worried about what others might think. "I'd love to," she said, and meant it. That evening, when her mother called again with more concerns, Jasmine felt stronger in her response. "Mom," she said firmly, "I need you to trust me. Marcus is more capable than most able-bodied men I know, and he makes me happy. That's what should matter." As she hung up the phone, Jasmine knew there would be more obstacles ahead, but something told her that with Marcus by her side, they could face anything together. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect circumstances, but about perfect understanding between two hearts. 6 months into their relationship, Jasmine discovered that dating Marcus was nothing like what people had warned her about. Their Saturday morning started with Marcus picking her up in his specially modified car. He had complete control with hand pedals, and Jasmine loved watching how smoothly he transferred from his wheelchair to the driver's seat. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked, that familiar sparkle in his eyes. "I've got something special planned for today." They drove to a local indoor climbing gym, and Jasmine looked confused. "Marcus, are you sure about this?" He laughed. "Trust me, I've been doing this for 2 years now. Today, I'm going to teach you adaptive climbing." Inside the gym, Marcus greeted the staff like old friends. He showed Jasmine the special equipment he used, a pulley system and adapted harness that allowed him to climb using mainly his upper body strength. She watched in amazement as he demonstrated, pulling himself up the wall with powerful arm movements. "Your turn," he called down to her. "I'll guide you through it." For the next hour, they climbed together, Marcus teaching her the techniques he had learned. Jasmine found herself seeing the world differently, not as a place divided between able and disabled, but as one where people simply found different ways to do things they loved. "You're a natural." Marcus cheered as Jasmine reached the top of her first climb. Looking down at him, she felt her heart swell with pride and love. Later that afternoon, they met up with Marcus's wheelchair basketball team for practice. Jasmine sat in a spare sports wheelchair, trying to maneuver around the court while the team showed her the basics. It's harder than it looks, right? Marcus grinned as she struggled to dribble and wheel at the same time. Took me months to get good at this. One of Marcus's teammates, David, pulled up beside Jasmine during a break. You know, when Marcus first joined the team, he was pretty down about life, but since he met you, he's been different, happier. Jasmine watched Marcus across the court, laughing with his teammates. He's changed my life too, she said softly. He's shown me that limitations only exist if you let them. That evening, they had dinner at Marcus's apartment. Jasmine loved his place. He had designed everything to be both accessible and stylish. The kitchen had lowered countertops, but they looked so modern that most people wouldn't even notice. He cooked them a delicious pasta dinner, moving around his kitchen with practiced ease. My mom called today, Jasmine said as they ate. She finally wants to meet you. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Really? What changed her mind? I sent her videos of you climbing and playing basketball. She said she never imagined. Jasmine paused. Well, she said she was wrong about her assumptions. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. People fear what they don't understand. Your mom just needed to see that disability doesn't mean inability. After dinner, they sat on Marcus's balcony, watching the Atlanta sunset. He had been teaching Jasmine about web accessibility, and she was fascinated by how technology could break down barriers. I'm working on a new project, Marcus said excitedly. A website that helps people with disabilities find adaptive sports programs in their area. Want to help me test it? Jasmine smiled, remembering how nervous she had been 6 months ago about dating someone with a disability. Now she couldn't imagine her life any other way. You know what I love most about you, she said, looking at him in the golden evening light. It's not your strength or your determination, though those are amazing. It's how you've helped me see the world differently. Marcus pulled her close. And you know what I love most about you. You never tried to fix me or treat me like I was broken. You just let me be me. As they sat together, watching the sky turn from orange to purple, Jasmine thought about how love works in mysterious ways. Sometimes the biggest blessings come in unexpected packages, and the greatest love stories aren't about perfect bodies, but perfect hearts that see beyond physical limitations to the beautiful soul within. After 2 years of dating, Marcus knew it was time to ask Jasmine to marry him. He had spent 3 months planning the perfect proposal, working secretly with Jasmine's friends and colleagues from the hospital to make it special. On a warm Saturday morning, Marcus told Jasmine he was taking her to Savannah for a weekend getaway. Pack something nice for dinner, he said with a mysterious smile. I made reservations at a special place. The 2-hour drive to Savannah was filled with their usual comfortable conversation and favorite songs. Jasmine noticed Marcus seemed a little nervous, which was unusual for him, but she didn't say anything. When they arrived at their hotel near Forsyth Park, Marcus suggested they go for a walk to stretch their legs. I have a fun game for us, he said, pulling out his tablet. I made an app that will guide us through some of Savannah's most beautiful spots. Each place has a special memory from our relationship. Jasmine's eyes lit up. She loved how Marcus always used his tech skills to make things more interesting. The app directed them to their first stop, a small cafe near the park. This reminds me of our first coffee date, Marcus said as they arrived. Remember how nervous we both were? Inside the cafe, they found Sarah, the charge nurse from the hospital where they first met. Surprise, she said, handing Jasmine an envelope. Inside was a photo of the hospital room where they first met, with a note, where two hearts first connected. The app then led them to a nearby art gallery. There, they found David from Marcus's basketball team waiting with another envelope. This one contained a photo of them at the climbing gym, with the message, where we learn to rise above challenges together. At each stop, someone special from their life was waiting with a new photo and message. Jasmine's eyes grew teary as she collected memories of their journey, their first vacation, family gatherings, and special moments they had shared. The final destination on the app was Forsyth Park, near the famous fountain. As they approached, Jasmine gasped. Her entire family was there, including her mother, who had become one of Marcus's biggest supporters over the past 2 years. One more envelope, her mother said softly, handing it to her with tears in her eyes. This envelope contained a photo taken just last week. Marcus secretly meeting with Jasmine's parents, showing them the ring and asking for their blessing. The message read, "Where the next chapter begins." When Jasmine looked up from the photo, Marcus had positioned his wheelchair directly in front of her. He pulled out a small remote control and pressed a button. Suddenly, music began playing from hidden speakers, and rose petals fell from the trees above them, dropped by Marcus's friends who had carefully hidden themselves. "Jasmine," Marcus began, his voice full of emotion, "2 years ago, you walked into my hospital room and changed my life forever. You saw past my wheelchair and straight into my heart. You never tried to fix me because you understood I wasn't broken. Instead, you joined me in showing the world that love knows no boundaries." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring box. Though he couldn't get down on one knee, he had practiced this moment to make it perfect. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring that caught the sunlight. "Every day with you has been an adventure. You've climbed walls with me, played basketball with me, and helped me create technology that makes the world better for others. Now, I'm asking you to take on the biggest adventure of all. Jasmine Carter, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Jasmine's face as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, their families and friends burst into applause and cheers. Jasmine leaned down to kiss him, not caring who was watching. "I have one more surprise," Marcus said after they broke apart. "Tonight's dinner reservation? It's actually our engagement party. Everyone's coming to celebrate with us." Looking around at all the smiling faces and back at the man she loved, Jasmine felt her heart could burst with happiness. This was what true love looked like, not perfect, but perfectly right for them. Planning a wedding was both exciting and challenging for Jasmine and Marcus. 3 months after their engagement, they sat in their fifth venue of the week, and Jasmine could see the frustration on Marcus's face as they looked at yet another place with steps leading to the altar. "I'm so sorry," the venue coordinator said, looking embarrassed. "We've never had a, wheelchair wedding before. Maybe we could build a temporary ramp." Marcus squeezed Jasmine's hand. "It's okay. This just isn't the right place for us." Outside in the parking lot, Jasmine felt tears of frustration forming. "Why is this so hard? We just want a beautiful wedding like anyone else." "Hey," Marcus said softly, pulling her onto his lap in his wheelchair. "The right place is out there. And when we find it, our wedding will be even more special because it will truly be ours." The next day, Marcus's sister Lisa called with exciting news. "I found it," she exclaimed over speakerphone. "The Atlanta Botanical Gardens just finished their new events center. It's completely accessible, with beautiful gardens and no steps anywhere." When they visited the gardens, both Jasmine and Marcus knew it was perfect. The ceremony could be held in the rose garden, which had smooth, white paths. The reception hall had lowered sections of the bar and plenty of space between tables for wheelchair movement. "Now comes the fun part," Jasmine said as they left the gardens. "Dance lessons." They found an instructor who specialized in adaptive dance, teaching them how to move together gracefully, incorporating Marcus's wheelchair into their choreography. During one lesson, Marcus spun Jasmine around his chair in a beautiful spiral that made her laugh with joy. "That's going to look amazing in your first dance," the instructor said, smiling at them. But not everyone was as understanding. When they met with the first wedding photographer, he seemed uncomfortable. "I usually pose couples standing together," he said awkwardly. "I'm not sure how to, We can show you," Marcus interrupted confidently. He positioned his chair next to a bench and helped Jasmine sit beside him. They looked at each other with such love that the photographer's doubts melted away. "Actually," he said, snapping a test shot, "this is beautiful. You too have something special." Shopping for wedding clothes brought its own challenges. The first bridal store they visited didn't even have enough space between dress racks for Marcus's wheelchair. But the second store was different. The owner's daughter used a wheelchair, and she understood exactly what they needed. "For the groom, we'll need to think about a suit that looks good while seated," she explained, showing them options. "And for the bride, we'll want a dress that flows beautifully around a wheelchair during dances." Jasmine's mother, who had come a long way in accepting their relationship, surprised them one evening with a special gift. She had hired a carpenter to build a custom wedding arch that incorporated places for Marcus's wheelchair to easily pass through. "I want your day to be perfect," she said, showing them the design. Because your love is perfect. As the wedding day grew closer, Marcus and Jasmine faced each challenge together. They chose a caterer who created a special sweetheart table that worked perfectly with Marcus's wheelchair. They found a cake baker who designed a display that both of them could easily reach for the cake-cutting ceremony. One evening, while reviewing their plans, Marcus noticed Jasmine smiling at their growing collection of wedding details. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How every challenge we've faced has just made our wedding more unique and meaningful," she replied. "We're not just planning a ceremony, we're showing everyone that love has no barriers." Marcus pulled her close. "You know what the best part is? All these adaptations we're making, they're going to help other couples in the future. The venues, the vendors, they're all learning how to be more inclusive because of us." Jasmine kissed him softly. "That's what I love about you. You always see the bigger picture." As they continued their planning, they realized that what some might see as obstacles were actually opportunities to create something truly special, a wedding that would not only celebrate their love, but also show the world that true love knows no boundaries. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Jasmine woke up in her hotel suite, surrounded by her bridesmaids who were already busy with hair and makeup preparations. Her wedding dress hung by the window, catching the early morning light and making the beads sparkle. "A package just arrived for you," Lisa, Marcus's sister and one of her bridesmaids, said with a mysterious smile. She handed Jasmine a beautifully wrapped box with a card that read, "Open me before you start getting ready." Jasmine's hands shook slightly as she opened the package. Inside was a tablet, already turned on, with a video ready to play. When she pressed start, Marcus's face appeared on the screen. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, his warm smile making her heart flutter just like it had the first day they met. "I've been working on a secret project for the past few months, and today is finally the day to share it with you." The video changed to show the hospital room where they first met. Dr. Matthews appeared on screen, standing in the exact spot where Marcus's bed had been. "I remember the day you two met," Dr. Matthews said, smiling. "I saw something special in the way you looked at each other, even then." The video continued, showing different people from their life together. Sarah, the charge nurse who had been there the night they met, spoke about how she knew they were meant to be together. David from the basketball team talked about how Jasmine had changed Marcus's whole outlook on life. Then came clips from their favorite places: the coffee shop where they had their first date, the climbing gym where they spent so many Saturdays, the basketball court where Jasmine learned to play wheelchair basketball. At each location, someone special shared a memory of their love story. Tears rolled down Jasmine's face as she watched Marcus's parents appear on screen. When Marcus had his accident, his mother said, "My biggest fear was that he would never find someone who could see his beautiful heart. Jasmine, you didn't just see it, you made it shine even brighter." The video showed children from the adaptive sports program where Marcus volunteered, all wishing them a happy wedding day. There were clips from their friends at the hospital, their favorite restaurant servers, and even the owner of the bridal shop who had helped make their wedding planning special. But the most touching moment came when Jasmine's mother appeared. "I was wrong," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I thought I was protecting my daughter, but instead, I almost kept her from the greatest love story I've ever witnessed. Marcus, you've taught our whole family what true love really means." The video ended with Marcus back on screen. "Jasmine, each person in this video represents a moment in our journey together. They've all watched our love grow and strengthen. But they've also seen something else: how we changed people's minds about what's possible when two hearts connect." He paused, his eyes full of emotion. "In a few hours, we'll start our biggest adventure yet. I can't wait to see you walk down the aisle, and I have one more surprise waiting for you there. Something that will show you just how far I'll go to make our dreams come true." As the video ended, Jasmine noticed everyone in the room was crying, even her usually composed makeup artist. Her best friend handed her a tissue, careful not to smudge her own tears. "That man," her friend said, shaking her head with a smile, "he really knows how to make a girl feel special." Jasmine hugged the tablet to her chest, feeling overwhelmed with love. "He makes me feel special every day," she said softly. "Not with grand gestures, but with the way he loves me completely. A way he never lets anything stop him from showing that love." As her bridesmaids helped her start getting ready, Jasmine wondered what Marcus's final surprise could be, but she knew that no matter what it was, The greatest gift was already hers. A love that saw no boundaries, knew no limits, and changed not just their lives but the lives of everyone around them. The wedding was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. At 1:15, Jasmine sat in the back of the decorated car her father had arranged, her heart beating with excitement. Her white dress filled the back seat, and her father drove carefully to keep it perfect. "We're making a quick stop," her father said mysteriously, turning onto a tree-lined street near the gardens. "Don't worry, we'll still be on time." Jasmine looked confused. "A stop? Dad, we can't be late." Her father just smiled and pulled up to a small clearing beside the road. There, under a beautiful oak tree, Jasmine saw several people gathered. Her heart nearly stopped when she recognized Marcus's doctor and physical therapist among them. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her father helped her out of the car, careful with her dress. As she walked closer to the group, she saw Marcus's wheelchair, but Marcus wasn't in it. Instead, he was standing, actually standing, supported by two metal braces that ran along his legs and up to his waist. "Surprise?" Marcus said softly, his eyes shining with tears and joy. Jasmine's hands flew to her mouth. "How? When? What is this?" Dr. Matthews stepped forward. "Marcus has been working with an experimental exoskeleton for the past 8 months. He wanted to stand beside you during your vows." Marcus took a small step forward, the mechanical braces whirring quietly. He had been practicing in secret 3 times a week, building his strength and learning to balance. His arms were strong from years of wheelchair use, helping him maintain stability with the walker attached to the exoskeleton. "I know we're not supposed to see each other before the wedding," he said, "but I couldn't wait to show you. I wanted you to have time to take it in." Jasmine walked closer, tears streaming down her face. She reached out and touched his chest, feeling the solid strength of him standing at his full height. At 6 feet tall, he was several inches taller than her, just as she had imagined from old photos. "You did all this? For me?" she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "I did it for us, and to show everyone that love gives you the strength to do impossible things." His physical therapist explained how the exoskeleton worked, how Marcus had trained tirelessly to master it. "He never gave up," she said. "Even when it was hard, even when he was exhausted, he kept thinking about this moment." Jasmine's father wiped tears from his eyes. "He showed us videos of his progress last week. We all wanted to be here for this moment." Marcus took another step, growing more confident. "I won't be able to wear it all day. It's still too tiring. But I'll be standing when you walk down the aisle and when we say our vows." Jasmine couldn't stop touching him, her hands moving from his chest to his shoulders, feeling the reality of him standing before her. "I can't believe you kept this secret all this time." "It wasn't easy," he laughed. "Especially when you asked why I was so tired some evenings, or why I had mysterious appointments." The physical therapist checked her watch. "We should get going. Marcus needs to rest a bit before the ceremony." Before they parted, Marcus pulled Jasmine close. For the first time, she had to look up to meet his eyes. "I love you," he said. "Thank you for making me want to try impossible things." "I love you too," she whispered back. "You're the most amazing man I've ever known." As they helped Marcus back into his wheelchair, he would enter the garden in it, and then surprise everyone by standing for the ceremony. Jasmine felt her heart might burst with love and pride. This man, who had already shown her so much about strength and determination, had pushed himself even further, just to create a magical moment for their wedding. Her father helped her back into the car, her dress somehow still perfect despite the emotional moment. As they drove toward the gardens, he said softly, "That man really would move mountains for you." Jasmine smiled through her tears. "He already has, Dad. He already has." The wedding ceremony at Atlanta Botanical Gardens was more beautiful than anyone could have imagined. Guests sat in white chairs along the wide, smooth paths of the rose garden. Flowers bloomed everywhere, filling the air with sweet perfume, but the most beautiful sight was yet to come. Marcus waited at the front, sitting in his wheelchair. Only a few people knew about his surprise. The wedding music started playing, and everyone stood, turning to watch for the bride. That's when Marcus pressed a small button on his chair, activating the exoskeleton hidden under his suit pants. A collective gasp went through the crowd as Marcus slowly stood up. His best man quickly moved his wheelchair aside, replacing it with the decorated walker that would help him stay steady. Tears and whispers of amazement spread through the guests. Jasmine appeared at the entrance of the garden path, holding her father's arm. Her white dress sparkled in the sunlight, but her smile was even brighter when she saw Marcus standing tall, waiting for her. She walked slowly, taking in every moment, watching happy tears fall from her mother's eyes in the front row. When she reached Marcus, her father kissed her cheek and stepped back. Jasmine and Marcus stood face to face, both of them at their full height, their eyes filled with love and joy. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to witness not just a marriage, but a testament to the power of love. A love that knows no boundaries, sees no limitations, and gives us the strength to achieve the impossible." During their vows, Marcus's voice was strong and clear. "Jasmine, you saw me for who I am, not what I couldn't do. Your love gave me the courage to try things I never thought possible. I promise to spend every day showing you that same kind of love." Jasmine's voice shook with emotion as she said her vows. "Marcus, you taught me what true strength looks like. It's not about physical abilities. It's about the power of the heart. I promise to face every challenge by your side, knowing that together we can overcome anything." After they were pronounced husband and wife, Marcus surprised everyone again. Instead of returning to his wheelchair for their first kiss, he held onto his walker with one hand and pulled Jasmine close with the other. Their kiss was met with cheers and applause that echoed through the garden. At the reception, Marcus mainly used his wheelchair, saving his strength for one special moment, their first dance. They had practiced for weeks with the exoskeleton, creating a beautiful dance that combined traditional steps with graceful movements in and out of the wheelchair. As they danced, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later that evening, a video of their ceremony was already spreading on social media. People were touched by their story, not just the surprise of Marcus standing, but the deeper message about love and determination. A week after their wedding, they received an email from a rehabilitation center. The video of their wedding had inspired them to start a program helping other couples adapt their weddings for various disabilities. Marcus and Jasmine were invited to be advisors. "See?" Marcus said, showing Jasmine the email. "Our love is already changing things. It's giving other couples hope." Jasmine smiled, remembering how worried she had been 2 years ago about dating someone in a wheelchair. "You know what's funny?" she said. "People think you're the one who overcame obstacles to stand at our wedding. But really, we all overcame something. My family overcame their prejudices. Our friends learned to see beyond disabilities, and I overcame my own fears." Marcus pulled her onto his lap in his wheelchair, something that had become one of their favorite ways to sit together. "That's what real love does," he said. "It doesn't just change two people, it changes everyone around them." As they looked through their wedding photos, each one showing a perfect moment of their special day, they knew their story was just beginning. They had already broken down barriers and changed minds. Now, they were ready to start their next adventure together, showing the world that when it comes to true love, anything is possible.